The hours dragged on like days as Taehyung waited in the chamber, the silence oppressive. The heavy drapes in the window flickered in the dim light, casting fleeting shadows against the walls. It felt as though the room itself was holding its breath. Finally, the door creaked open. Jungkook returned, his face unreadable, but there was a certain weight to his step. His sharp gaze flicked toward Taehyung, who hadn't moved an inch since he left. "Did you enjoy your time alone?" Jungkook's voice was teasing, but there was an edge to it, a warning. Taehyung didn't respond. He couldn't. The words that had been swirling in his mind for hours clung to his tongue, but the reality of the situation, the weight of being trapped in this marriage with a man who wasn't what he seemed, had rendered him speechless. Jungkook stepped closer, eyes never leaving Taehyung. His hand brushed the back of Taehyung's chair, trailing his fingers lazily along the wood. "You didn't think this was just about a simple marriage, did you?" Taehyung finally lifted his head, meeting Jungkook's gaze with determination. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jungkook smiled. It wasn't the innocent smile from earlier, but something darker, knowing. "Everything." Taehyung's stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" Jungkook leaned in, their faces inches apart. "It means that you're mine, Taehyung. My father may have orchestrated this marriage, but now that we're bound, there's no going back. You'll play the part of the dutiful husband, and I'll play the part of the loving spouse, but there's more to this than what anyone expects." Taehyung's mind spun. The room seemed to tilt with the weight of Jungkook's words. Loving spouse? The idea seemed absurd, a mockery of everything Taehyung had known. "But you," Taehyung's breath hitched. "You're not who you say you are. You pretended to be a fool." Why? Jungkook didn't flinch. He merely smirked, his lips curling up in that same knowing way. "Because it suited me. No one ever suspects a fool, Taehyung. It's the perfect mask." The confession hit like a cold wave, and Taehyung's thoughts scrambled. Jungkook had hidden behind this mask of incompetence to control the situation, to manipulate everyone around him. He wasn't just the mentally impaired heir, he was playing a Game of Thrones. "Why?" Taehyung whispered, his heart pounding in his chest. "What do you want from me?" Jungkook's smile faltered for a brief moment, as if considering something. Then, his gaze softened, and he took another step closer, so close that Taehyung could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I don't want you to just be my husband," he said, voice low, almost intimate. "I want you to want me." Taehyung's breath caught in his throat. "What if I don't?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly despite his efforts to sound defiant. Jungkook's hand slid to Taehyung's cheek, fingers brushing the skin so lightly it almost tickled. "You will." Eventually, he leaned in, his lips brushing the curve of Taehyung's ear. "You may not realize it yet, but I know you better than you think. The way you look at me, the way you react to my touch, it's all a game, Taehyung. A game I intend to win." Taehyung couldn't breathe. His body was betraying him, his pulse racing, his skin tingling with the nearness of Jungkook. But his mind screamed, telling him to pull away, to resist the web Jungkook was weaving. "You're wrong," Taehyung said harshly, but the words felt empty even to him. He had no choice. No choice but to play the game. Jungkook pulled back, his lips curving in satisfaction. "Am I?" he asked, his voice full of quiet amusement. "We'll see, won't we?" The door opened again, this time with a knock. A servant stepped in, bowing low. "My lord," the servant said, "your father requests your presence in the study." Jungkook's eyes flicked to Taehyung, the smirk still lingering on his lips. Duty calls. He turned toward the door, but then stopped, his back still to Taehyung. Don't think I'm done with you, husband. This game is just beginning. The door clicked shut behind him, and Taehyung was left standing in the chamber, heart racing and mind reeling. What had he just agreed to? Taehyung paced the length of his chamber, the weight of Jungkook's words still echoing in his ears. I want you to want me. His mind refused to settle. How could he? How could he ever desire someone like Jungkook, someone who had so meticulously hidden behind a mask of madness? And yet, there was something unsettlingly magnetic about the way Jungkook looked at him, something that made Taehyung's pulse race every time their eyes met. The door opened once again, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. This time, it wasn't Jungkook but one of the household servants, an older woman with a bow in her step and a knowing look in her eye. My lord, she said softly, eyes scanning the room. Your presence is requested in the study. The young master is awaiting you. Taehyung hesitated. The last time he had been summoned to the study, it was a trap, a new level in the game Jungkook was playing. But this time, there was no avoiding it. His feet moved before his mind could protest, and soon, he found himself in the cold, stone halls of the Jian estate, making his way toward the study. The door creaked open, and Jungkook sat at a large desk, his back turned as he flipped through papers. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows against the walls. Taehyung's breath caught when he saw the scene. It was so familiar, so intimate. Jungkook, sitting in control, his movements slow and deliberate. The same commanding presence he had hidden beneath the guise of a fool was now exposed in full. Come in, Taehyung, Jungkook said without looking up, his voice casual but laced with an underlying edge. Don't be shy. Taehyung stepped forward, his every instinct telling him to turn and leave. But his feet betrayed him, leading him further into the room. Jungkook finally looked up, his eyes narrowing as he studied Taehyung's face. I can tell you're angry, he said, his lips curling in a teasing smile. But I thought we agreed, you'll play your part, and I'll play mine. Taehyung crossed his arms, trying to hold on to whatever semblance of control he had left. And what exactly is your part? Jungkook pushed the papers aside and stood, walking around the desk toward Taehyung. My part is to make you see that we are not so different, you and I. The air between them thickened as Jungkook reached out and gently touched the back of Taehyung's neck, his thumb caressing the sensitive skin just beneath his ear. Taehyung froze, his body betraying him again as heat rushed to his face. We both play the parts we're given, Jungkook continued, his voice low. But I don't want to play anymore, Taehyung. I want the real thing. Taehyung's breath caught in his throat. The real thing. Jungkook's smile deepened. I want you. Not as a puppet, not as a pawn. I want you to come to me willingly. To desire me, not because you have to, but because you want to. Taehyung swallowed hard, his pulse pounding in his ears. The words stirred something deep inside him, something he didn't want to acknowledge. But Jungkook's touch, his proximity, it was too much. It made Taehyung feel things he couldn't afford to feel. You're playing a dangerous game, Jungkook, Taehyung whispered, his voice trembling despite himself. I'm not going to fall for this. Jungkook stepped closer, his breath warm against Taehyung's face. You already have, Taehyung. You just don't know it yet. Before Taehyung could respond, Jungkook's lips brushed against his, so soft, so delicate, that for a moment, Taehyung thought he might be imagining it. But then Jungkook pulled back, his eyes never leaving Taehyung's, a challenge in them. "Tell me, husband," Jungkook murmured. "How much longer will you fight?" Taehyung's hands clenched at his sides, torn between fury and an unfamiliar longing that made his chest tighten. His mind screamed at him to push Jungkook away, to stand firm against whatever twisted game this was, but his body, his traitorous body, seemed to want something else. "I won't be your pawn," Taehyung said, though even he could hear the hesitation in his voice. Jungkook's smirk widened. "We'll see." The door to the study opened, and his servant stepped inside, bowing quickly. "My lord," the servant said, "the Kim family has sent a new letter for you. Your father wishes to speak with you." Jungkook's gaze flicked to the servant, then back to Taehyung, his expression darkening. "Leave us," Jungkook commanded, his voice low but firm. The servant bowed again before retreating, leaving the two men alone once more. Taehyung's heart hammered in his chest, the tension between them palpable. Jungkook had succeeded in drawing him in making him question everything he thought he knew about desire, about control. But Taehyung couldn't give in, he couldn't let Jungkook win. But as the door closed behind the servant, Taehyung felt the weight of the game they were playing. It wasn't just about the marriage anymore. It was about something far darker, and far more dangerous.